Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post. DOJ and FBI officials panic, now hiring criminal defense lawyers. There's an entire separate world going on in Washington, and in the Justice Department, they have a tremendous amount of influence and power, and they have a tremendous amount of influence and discretion. If the Attorney General or people under the Attorney General decide to target a political enemy or decide, you know what, I don't want to target a political enemy, but these people did this at the Capitol on January 6th. This guy who's running for president, well, we don't really want him to be president. Or this guy who's running for president, let's look at this evidence and come up with a novel theory and appoint a special counsel and let him deal with that while he's trying to run for president. They did that. They used their discretion to go after their political opponents. It used to be that even if a political opponent did something wrong, you would say, well, okay, yes, but wouldn't it just look too messy? Wouldn't it just be too big of a problem and damage the standing of the United States if we were to go after a former president or someone running for office? We don't really want to do that. It doesn't look good for the country. Is it necessary for justice to really do that? Because it's not just, can we nail someone? They're supposed to be looking at what's good for justice. Well, the Department of Justice and the FBI have people, at least at the top, at least in their important roles, who seem to see things all the same way. Ideologically, they're all on the same page. So if they make a decision that it's important for their institution to break certain rules and norms, they go ahead and do it. And as a result, Donald Trump got into a lot of legal trouble. And not just him, people in his administration, people who supported him. Donald Trump has been forced to spend at least $100 million on his defense while running for president, due to multiple cases either directly brought by or coordinated through the Department of Justice or people very close to the Department of Justice, former people at the Department of Justice, who, according to him, Andrew Weissman, Norm Eisen, and others who've coordinated with current prosecutors, even though they've left the Justice Department, to pursue these cases against Trump and Trump-related people. I don't have exact information about that. That's just based on my observation. And also, occasionally, Andrew Weissman has said on TV that, yes, he has talked to and worked with and sent suggestions to certain prosecutors working on certain cases. That's my best assessment of it. But now there's blowback. From NBC News, DOJ and FBI officials reach out to lawyers as potential Trump revenge prosecutions loom. Legal experts say Trump's choice for Attorney General Matt Gaetz signals the president-elect's determination to tightly control the Justice Department and prosecute adversaries. You know, there may be a situation where you'd say, look, you did some things wrong technically. I know you did some things wrong, or let's just view things in such a way that, all right, you did these things wrong. Let's pursue these cases against you, Donald Trump. Well, they did do that. At the same time, Trump knows what he didn't do. He himself knows because he's him. He has inside information because he lives in his own head. He knows he didn't do any of these things he's being accused of having done. He's told people that publicly many times. So when he takes responsibility for the government, and he sees this Justice Department that has been a problem for him for several years now, interfering at their own discretion, using and potentially abusing their power to interfere with the legally elected president, well, that's a problem for the Justice Department, and he aims to fix that problem. There's a tremendous amount of fear going around. Actually, you could legitimately call it panic, hysteria, over Matt Gaetz becoming Attorney General. The Republican Senate is not necessarily going to even accept him and support him and approve him as Attorney General. But there's more than one way for him to become Attorney General. Trump doesn't really need the Senate to go ahead and approve him and put him in as Attorney General. There are recess appointments, which Mitch McConnell is freaking out about and saying, no, you can't have recess appointments. Just recently, Senator Mitch McConnell said in a message to President-elect Trump regarding his cabinet picks, there will be no recess appointments. Rick Scott, who's also in the Senate, said, yes, there will be. And there are a number of ways, even if the Republican Senate doesn't want to have recess appointments, that you could have an appointment. A recess appointment would be while the Senate and the Congress are closed down for a short amount of time, Trump is able to put through appointments that don't get their approval or don't even get put through any kind of Senate approval process. That's a possibility. Another possibility is what Trump already did just a few years ago. He temporarily appointed Matthew Whitaker. Matthew Whitaker was Attorney General for a few months. Not for a long time, because Trump then appointed Bill Barr to be the regular Attorney General through the regular appointment process. However, he can legally appoint an acting Attorney General, and I expect he probably will do that to make sure he's got his guy in charge on January 20th, 2025. There were lawsuits from Senate Democrats and other people upset that Trump wanted to put in his own guy so he would have control over the Department of Justice. But there is a legal basis for Trump to be able to appoint whoever he wants to appoint as an acting head of any department under established law. And it just came out today that Trump has sent word to Senate Majority Leader Thune that if the Senate doesn't confirm AG Gaetz, he will appoint him using the Federal Vacancies Reform Act of 1998, which allows for temporary appointments for up to 210 days with a possible 210-day extension. That individual would not require Senate confirmation. Beyond this, the Supreme Court has established that the President of the United States, when elected and then put into power, they are the unitary executive, they are the singular executive, the single person in charge of the entire executive branch. They have the right and the responsibility to control the executive branch, which of course includes the Department of Justice, the FBI, all of these different departments. Multiple current and former senior Justice Department and FBI officials have begun reaching out to lawyers in anticipation of being criminally investigated by the Trump administration, according to 3 people with knowledge of their deliberations. Following Trump's decisive election victory, many Justice Department officials and career staffers were already nervous about the possibility they would be targeted by Trump loyalists, particularly members of Congress. But the selection of former Representative Matt Gaetz, a firebrand Trump ally who has been the subject of a recent FBI investigation, to lead the department has sharply increased the sense of alarm, according to sources, and as well it should. Quote, "Everything we did was above board," said a former senior FBI official who has started contacting lawyers because he expects to be prosecuted himself. Quote, "But this is a different world." Well, it may have been above board, but you should be careful about that discretion that you use because you're responsible when you use that kind of power. Trump has been found to be immune from most of the things that he does as president, as long as it's within the outer limits of his responsibility as president. And he has huge responsibility as president for everything that goes on in the executive branch. He can't be judged for abusing his power by the Supreme Court in most cases. Anyone else, any official, any attorney general, deputy attorney general, prosecutor, if they abuse their power, they can't say, well, look, I did it on behalf of the executive branch. I was elected to do this, so you can't hold me responsible for it. No, they can be held responsible for it. They don't have immunity for it. And maybe that's why they shouldn't have pursued Trump so aggressively. Not even because of retribution, because they forced the Supreme Court, these very prosecutors, the Jack Smith people and the people behind Jack Smith, to judge and decide, can we prosecute President Trump for talking to his attorney general about potential problems with the 2020 election? Can we prosecute him for having conversations with his own vice president about whether or not they should take certain actions to do what in their discretion, within their authority, discretion, to deal with potential issues with the 2020 election? No, you can't prosecute them for that. Obviously, use your common sense. But you force the Supreme Court to make that decision. You force the Supreme Court to say, no, you can't. You can't prosecute the president for doing president stuff. That's what he's there to do. And you also can't draw a limited circle around the president's activities and say, oh, but he doesn't have a right to do this or that. He can't talk to his own attorney general or his own vice president. And now these guys have set a precedent with the Supreme Court. The president can at any time get involved with any prosecutions going on in the Justice Department and or order that certain people be prosecuted. That wasn't in existence in his first term. Now it's in existence. So now they have to deal with it. Had they not done these novel prosecutions, coming up with their own crazy takes on prosecutions that have never been done before, this never would have gotten in front of the Supreme Court, and they never would have made this decision, creating unbelievable jeopardy, not for Trump because it protects Trump, but for everyone who tried to prosecute Trump and who did prosecute Trump. The official who spoke on the condition of anonymity out of fear of becoming even more of a target doesn't believe any attempt to prosecute him will be successful. Judges and juries have the power to throw out cases or find defendants innocent if they deem prosecutions to be baseless. What this official should be thinking more about, though, is jurisdiction and venue. Trump is not going to bring all the cases, if he does bring cases, as anyone traditionally would in Washington, D.C. All the Washington, D.C. judges and prosecutors are also in this same club. The judges won't support the prosecution of anyone, regardless of what they did, if they did it under the Department of Justice. There are other ways for Trump to move any cases like this outside of Washington, D.C. Look for him to do that. If these people really do get prosecuted, if they get fair trials in front of fair judges, they are going to have a big problem. Like many other current and former justice officials, this one is bracing for a potentially long and costly legal battle, as well as the possibility of protracted congressional investigations after Trump takes office in January. Career FBI employees are especially vulnerable, the official added. Since they make less money than they would in the private sector, they rely on the pensions they receive after 20 years. Quote, agents have to do 20 years, the former senior FBI official said. These people don't have options. Well, the option would have been, don't stand out doing strange prosecutorial things and fix evidence in certain ways and support novel prosecutions against the former president. Don't do things like that, and then you wouldn't be in this situation. There are lots of other people that would be a higher priority than you if what you did was appropriate. If it wasn't appropriate, you've made yourself a high priority to get in trouble. A former senior Justice Department official who served during Trump's first term said he too saw Gaetz' nomination as a sign of the seriousness of the president-elect's vow to exact revenge on those who investigated him. Well, they didn't just investigate him. They prosecuted Trump. And they didn't just prosecute him. They prosecuted him during an election period. And not just that. They did it in every case in a, quote, novel, special way. A way where they dreamed up a way that they could sort of push the case through. And they did push the cases through. And Trump went through a lot of trouble over that. And it's got to be set up so that this can't happen again, not to Trump or anyone else who follows Trump. Because how could any other Republican have withstood this? Would they have had $100 million to spend on legal fees? Would they have had the ability and the patience to deal with the pressure of all these cases? I don't think so. So the apparatus needs to be taken down. Quote, he needs to be able to control the department, which he can do through a loyal AG beholden to him, the former Justice Department official said. Gaetz, who was the subject of a federal trafficking investigation that ended without charges, quote, understands that he owes everything to Trump, who can protect Gaetz as well through his pardon power, according to the former official. Quote, Trump is confident that Gaetz will do whatever Trump tells him to do. Trump isn't going to have to tell Gaetz what to do. If you follow Matt Gaetz over the last couple of years, he's been on the same side of Trump's opinion nonstop. He knows what's wrong with what's going on at the Department of Justice and the FBI. He's going to deal with those things when he's Attorney General. Trump and his supporters have consistently argued that all of the criminal investigations against him have been politically motivated and that Justice Department and FBI officials deserve to be prosecuted. Weeks before Election Day, Stephen Chung, a spokesperson for Trump, called for the January 6th charges and all federal and state criminal charges against Trump to be dropped. Had they just dropped those charges, had they just dropped those cases, even delayed those cases saying, hey, you know what? The election's coming up in 6 months from now. We don't want to interfere with that. We don't want to bring charges. have bad publicity for a potential presidential candidate, which of course he was. We don't want to affect an election based on someone who is in a process versus have been convicted. At the very least, they should have done that, but they showed Trump no grace. And if they expect it from him now, they're not going to get it. Quote, this entire case is a sham and a partisan unconstitutional witch hunt that should be dismissed entirely, as should all of the remaining Democrat hoaxes, according to Chung. Legal experts say Trump's goal in investigating his investigators is simple: intimidate anyone who dares to probe Trump's conduct. Quote, Trump aims to neutralize sources of power that may impede him. According to Stephen Gillers, an ethics professor at New York University Law School, that includes the law and legal institutions. He will tolerate no interference when the department's decisions will benefit Trump and his buddies, or when its power can be deployed to retaliate against his enemies. Well, it's true that if Trump goes after all of these corrupt institutions, and yes, they are very corrupt, and they are so corrupt they don't even realize they're corrupt, but by going after these institutions and putting them on the defense, they're not able to come up with special counsels or whatever other nonsense they might try to scheme and come up with to interfere with his presidency again, the way they did during the first presidency. They've made it impossible for Trump to not go after them. So now he's going after them. Now there's shock inside the DOJ. Justice Department officials, including Attorney General Merrick Garland, were shocked by Trump's decisive election win. For the last 4 years, Garland has argued that strictly following post-Watergate norms that require the Justice Department to work in a nonpartisan manner in criminal investigations would restore public trust in the Justice Department. Except that all the cases that they brought against Trump were novel takes, were crazy different takes on things that had not been done before. In addition to prosecuting a former president. In addition to sending Matthew Colangelo, the third highest up in the Justice Department, to work with New York State to arrange those cases. In addition to New York State's Tish James, as well as Fani Willis from Georgia, sending their people to Washington, D.C., logging them in, because it's logged in, to the White House visitors log as they spent time talking with the White House about Trump's cases, obviously. Instead, some career Justice Department officials wept after the election, dismayed by the fact that large numbers of Americans apparently continue to believe Trump's claims that the department is a cesspool of corruption. Justice Department and FBI officials say that the Trump investigations were carried out properly. Justice Department prosecutors secured indictments from federal grand juries against Trump for his mishandling of classified documents and his efforts to reverse the 2020 election results. They expressed bafflement at what criminal charge could be brought against them as a result. Quote, there's no crime, said a current law enforcement official. What's the crime? Well, then you have nothing to worry about, right? There won't be someone trying to figure out a novel way to go after you. There won't be some, I don't know who it might be, attorney general that happens to come in that says, you know what, I have a novel way to prosecute you. You prosecuted the former president that way. Let's try my novel way, or let's try a less novel way and do some kind of RICO prosecution to abuse power, coordinating with multiple officials in multiple departments, even coordinating with the intelligence agencies, coordinating with separate jurisdictions and separate authorities like authorities in New York State, authorities in Georgia, timing your cases so they would hit a certain way so that your cases wouldn't interfere with each other and you could build momentum on them. I don't know. Who might really go after that? Who might really say, you know what? I do want to prosecute these people. I do think what they did was wrong in the opinion of me, the new attorney general. I wonder who that might be. It's going to be Matt Gaetz, or it's going to be somebody as bad or worse than Matt Gaetz as far as they're concerned. This is a problem that's not going away, especially since in addition to taking away the power of these guys to go after Trump during his new administration, holding these guys accountable, which would be interesting and something I'm sure someone would want them to do. But even beyond that, and in addition to that, dealing with elections, making sure that elections are fair and free, making sure there really hasn't been any cheating as much as they've been telling us. Probably that's true. Maybe that's not true. A new AG could have a new elections department and figure that out, which would probably be very helpful to do before the midterms, because if Trump loses Congress, there will be, again, multiple sham impeachments he'll need to deal with. Mike Davis, a conservative lawyer and Trump ally, has argued that special counsel Jack Smith could be prosecuted for breaking one of the laws that Smith accused Trump of breaking regarding the 2020 election: conspiracy against rights. The statute says it's illegal for anyone to deny a person a federal right, such as voting. Smith argued that Trump's attempt to reverse the 2020 election results denied voters in multiple states the right to have their votes accurately counted. Ilya Soman, a law professor at George Mason University, said he did not see how Smith could be charged with denying Trump a federal right. Quote, "I think that's absurd," he said. "I don't see any legitimate charge that could be brought against Smith." Soman warned that a prosecutor can investigate an individual over a long period and find that they had broken unrelated federal laws that cover minor offenses. If Trump's attorney general, for example, appoints a special prosecutor to examine the federal criminal investigations of Trump, they could find that a Justice Department or FBI official broke a federal law that does not relate to the Trump probes, such as a tax or drug infraction. Quote, "If you think about it, a majority of adult Americans have probably violated federal laws, such as smoking marijuana at some point in their lives," Soman said. Yeah, this isn't going to be about smoking marijuana, I don't think. It's going to be about something much, much worse, about like coordinating some kind of a strange activity to interfere with Trump running for election, or something else. I don't know what Jack Smith's been up to, or his people. Special counsel Robert Mueller, during his investigation of whether Trump campaign officials coordinated with Russia during the 2016 campaign, charged multiple Trump associates with unrelated crimes. Paul Manafort, Trump's campaign chairman, was sentenced to just under 4 years in prison after being convicted of tax and bank fraud. They've been doing this kind of thing, investigating and trying to find crimes or make up crimes on Trump people for years now. So it's time for it to kind of go the other way and then to wipe the slate clean and make sure no one can ever do that again. A special counsel appointed by Attorney General William Barr, John Durham, then spent years scrutinizing the actions of the CIA and FBI in connection with Russia's 2016 election interference efforts, only to net a single guilty plea from an FBI lawyer who lied on a document. He changed the document so they could have a phony FISA application based on Carter Page that allowed the FBI to then spy on Trump's campaign and everyone involved with Trump's campaign. And there was much worse that went on, at least as far as I can tell from my opinion. But a lot of these people have been protected by the Justice Department, the FBI, and the intelligence agencies. But it looks like that protection's gone. Many of the people investigated by John Durham had to spend thousands of dollars on legal fees. Now, a new group of Justice Department and FBI officials are facing the prospect of hefty legal fees as well. Gillers, the NYU professor, said that he believes Trump's nomination of Gaetz was the beginning, not the end, of its efforts to exact revenge on the department. Quote, "Elevating Gaetz is part payback for Jack Smith's 2 indictments," Gillers said. "The Justice Department is Trump's white whale, and like Captain Ahab, Trump is determined to get even. Trump is not determined to get revenge. He's determined to make the Justice Department focused on justice again. There are still professionals in the legal profession that are concerned, that really do want to see the Justice Department become something again that isn't so politically affected and corrupt. They exist. They're alive. Jeff Clark, who worked there, is one of those people. Mike Davis is also one of those people, but there are many people that want the Justice Department to be something we could be proud of again. And that's what Trump is trying to do. It's not about revenge. It's about setting things right. And about accountability. That's important too. I will tell you, I happen to like Harry Litman. I enjoy his videos. He's an attorney. He's intelligent. I like his analysis. He's very political. And he mixes his political with his legal analysis, and it gets to the point where it's a little bit ridiculous. He's a former U.S. Attorney, Deputy Assistant AG. He's been part of the DOJ, and he is hysterical over Matt Gaetz becoming AG. It's tweet after tweet after tweet, and I comment on some of them, but it's tweet after tweet after tweet of, oh my God, Matt Gaetz. Here's an article he did for the LA Times on Matt Gaetz. He has a YouTube channel and a successful podcast. Matt Gaetz this, Matt Gaetz that. And prior to Trump winning the election, how Trump is going to jail and he's in trouble and he's desperate and all these other things. These guys really are losing their minds over this, which is really what gives me the impression that they know what they've done is wrong. If you follow both sides of the argument and you understand that, yes, the institution of the DOJ, those people are all politically pushed to one direction, and they feel that they should be able to use their discretion to punish people that they don't like, they should not trust themselves, not when 99% of them see things the same way. There are other ways of seeing things. It's not just your own institutional ideas about how the country should be run and about who deserves a novel prosecution, something made up just for that one individual, and who doesn't. We have to return fairness to the Justice Department. It can't just be what the Washington elites think is important and fair is important and fair. And that's what Trump will do, and that's what I'm expecting AG Matt Gaetz to do. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.